And good evening and welcome to the 32nd and final edition of the Big High School Sports Show for this season on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. We'll be with you until 8 p.m. tonight, me along with former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach Jeff Gress, and we have 4 guests lined up for tonight. At 6:15, we'll be joined by Mark Miller from WisSports.net and the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook. Get his thoughts on the state tournament held this past weekend at the Kohl Center in Madison. Then at 6:40, we'll talk about the state hockey tournament with the head coach of Wausau West and the president of the Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association, B.J. Brandt. That's at 6:40. Then at 7 o'clock, we'll be joined by first team All-State in Division 5 and state champion as well in D5 from Newman Catholic High School, their senior guard, Mason Prey. And then at 7:20, we'll be joined by the president of the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association, former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach and current coach of the Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln Red Raiders, Dan Witter. So another full slate of guests coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show. And for the final time this season, welcome, Jeff Gress.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be fun with all those guests and go out the bang and get some insight that will hopefully tide people over till start up again next year.
We're going to talk a lot about the state basketball tournament with Mark Miller coming up in a little more than 10 minutes, but have to start off by talking about Newman Catholic as the Cardinals able to do it. The last thing I asked you last week was, would they be able to do it? And they did it. They had a semifinal win against Royal. Again, a game that was probably a little tougher than many people thought, but in the end, Newman won a grinder. And then in the state championship game against a McDonald Central team that had lost just one game all season long, Cardinals able to win 66-54. Big game for Connor Kroc with 21 points. Mason Prey had 18 in that game as well for Newman Catholic. But looking at the state tournament, Newman, as we're going to talk about with Mason Prey later on, they got challenged both games. They had leads. They had their opponents come back, make a game out of it, and then in the end, every time Newman needed to make a response, and they did that in the sectional final as well against Gibraltar, but every time they needed an answer, they would have an answer.
Definitely, and I think that comes from the makeup of playing the schedule that they do. First off, we've said it numerous times on this show, the difficulty of playing in the Merrillwood South and being battled every time you go into that conference schedule by the teams that you play against. They come at you each and every night and give you a game, and then just their tough non-conference games. I mean, they were set up and primed, and they've been playing. The seniors have logged a lot of hours. Some of them started as freshmen. Some of them were key reserves as freshmen. Got a lot more time as sophomore and juniors. And now, this was their moment to handle the adversity for everybody that said they should make it to state and they should be state champions. They went and did it to their credit. And now they have something that, something nobody's ever going to be able to take away from them is that gold ball. The only team in history to be able to do that at Newman Catholic for boys basketball. And to their credit, they always took the blows that teams brought them, and it showed in the 2 games down at the Kohl Center when Royal came at them once. They got a little close, but then Newman fended them off again with some quick scores, some good offensive looks, some tough defense. And McDonald, too, who was touted as this team that comes to get you in the second half every game they play, and they held true to that. McDonald came after them, and they beat them back again. I mean, the old saying, they bent, but they never broke. And Newman always was able to receive those punches that the other teams were able to give them, and I'm that's just a credit to their toughness, their team play, and what a well-rounded group of seniors that you had there.
And in order to win against good competition, there are certain elements that you need to have, and I think a couple of them that showed up big time for Newman is when you have not one but 2 82% plus free throw shooters that have the ball most of the time. Yeah. Isaac Seidel made, I think, 11 in a row in the second half. He missed the first one, then made the rest of them. He had 25 points in that semifinal. And then if you're not going to follow Isaac, then you got Mason Prey, who is an 82% free throw shooter as well. We saw that on Saturday where they were able to make the free throws to, again, build up that lead. But to have guys that take care of the basketball and then able to finish it off with free throws. Because in the high school game, how many times have you seen high school teams that just struggle at the line to close out games? And boy, when Newman is ahead, that's one of the great closing aspects for that team is they got their ball handlers who are their best free throw shooters.
Right, and Newman's, I'm assuming, a great game plan and how they adjusted to the started games was to go out and get that lead quickly with the offensive talent they had. Because to play against, when you're not winning against Newman, they're a hard team to press. They've got a numerous amount of guys that can handle the ball or handle it well or get it to the ball handlers and know how to do that. And they got guys that shoot heavy from the free throw line and want the ball at the end. How many times did you see Prey and Seidel come back and get it and say, okay, I'm going, right. Two guys are coming at me and I'm holding on to this ball for dear life and hat me and put me in the line because I'm going to go hit two after you slap my arms as hard as you can to get the foul. And they did that. And I think just the makeup of the team and how they handled this season was great. You know, for Coach Walvogel in his first year, I thought he you had some old dogs that were in your rotation, guys that have played a lot, so you had to let them be who they were, and he did that. And he tweaked a couple things he thought maybe could make their game that much better, but otherwise, he let them be who they are, which is, I think, a big deal coming in as a new coach with some veteran players like that. To the players' credit, they only went 6, 7 deep at times in their rotation, but they were deep position by position and deep with that core group of seniors. I mean, you had Mason and Isaac and their scoring attributes, their ball handling, their shooting abilities. You had Jackson Fender who could spot up from the outside and shoot the ball and handle it when he needed to. Eli was a monster inside in terms of his scoring and rebounding. And then you had Connor, who is a defensive stopper as well as he could put up points when needed. Thomas Bates was your raw guy off the bench that could come in and give quality minutes and make plays and hold his own with a toughness factor. And Owen Sullivan, when he got healthy, was another big guy that could give you quality minutes. And they knew how to win from other sports, from what they expected of themselves. And I think just that was a deep division. It's only 6 guys or 7 guys at times, but pound for pound, that's a deep team. And I think that created a lot of matchup headaches and nightmares for other teams that they played.
You mentioned Eli. I don't know if we've seen too many players asked to the media room at the state tournament when you scored, I think, 2 points. In the semifinals, he had 2 points, but he pulled down 16 rebounds. It was such a big factor in that kind of game. That game was a different kind of game. Usually, Newman is a team that's going to win with their offense. But against Royal did a terrific job of making it a grinder. Really, I mean, when it was 17-3, I thought it was going to be like the Pacelli game. But they were able to respond, and they were able to make it tough on Newman and force the Cardinals to win with defense and rebounding. And without Eli providing the 16 boards, that game could have been different.
Well, and I thought one of the things that Newman did a great job all year long was adjusting to the style of player or taking what was given to him on the court. If somebody was going to hound one of their scores, they figured out a way to beat you. If they had to slow the game down a little bit, it wasn't Newman's way of wanting to play, but they were able to adjust to that. And I think that's a good job on the coach's part, a good job on an experienced group of knowing what the other team's going to give you, and then we're going to give you a little bit more and take away some of your attributes to beat you. As far as Eli goes, I thought from you knew what Eli was all year long, but I think from the Columbus game on, in terms of hunkering down on the inside and making the paint his and staying out of foul trouble and controlling those boards both offensively and defensively, that was a difference maker for this team. It just gave them a whole new. They already were stable, and it gave them another level of stability up from what they were, and it carried them through in the playoff game when he was able to D the big kid up and play good defense. His 16 boards is a tremendous amount of rebounds in a state game, and that was outstanding. So I just think his ability to be a huge factor out on that court and grow with only so many games left was an immense amount of positivity that this team needed.
It is just so difficult to beat a talented team when you have 2 players like Seidel and Prey, and then in the championship game to have a third player like Connor Crock step up like he did. I mean, you talk about just if you're McDonald, that is the worst case scenario. You have to try to contain at least one of the two big guns and then not have anybody else step up. And then to have Croc step up with 21 points and hit 3-pointers. I mean, as an opposing coach, that is probably, again, a nightmare scenario for McDonald.
Well, I've listened to coaches talking about playing Newman, read something that was in print, whatever it may be, it was always about pick your poison.
Right.
I mean, who are you going to defend? Who are you going to stop? So first off, you got Prayer Stardell just because they're in the stat category so big. So which one are you going to defend there? Now, if you even get a mediocre response where you can keep two of them in check, which is difficult to do. You had the ability. Connor's averaging a double-double, plays with an intense amount of energy on the floor and brings that every play. The defensive stopper makes his defense into offense so many times for that team, and just to have that as your third option, and then you have Eli starting to score a little more, control the boards, and you got Jackson that can hit from the outside, and he stepped up and was their leading scorer at times, sometimes in certain games when other guys couldn't get going. So I just think, again, we talk about that depth, which really made it a headache for other teams that played Newman, and I think it's an attribute to why they did so well, why they were always able to have teams make run at them and hold them at check, and then why they were able to ultimately win that state title is they were deep.
And finally, I guess another point I want to make is that, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, with Mason Prey a little bit later on, is the fact that a team comes into a season with such high expectations where not only a state appearance but maybe a state championship is really the only way to truly have the kind of season that they would want to have, because this is a team that's had such success. This group of seniors, an all-senior starting lineup. You talk about the short rotation. It's based on all-senior rotation going into this season, coming off the disappointment against Marshfield Columbus in the sectionals a year ago, the disappointment against Prentice in the regionals 2 years ago, going into the season knowing that almost gold ball or bust, that's a lot of pressure for a young man. And they have experience, but they're still very young, these student athletes. And they were able to handle it and take the challenges, as you said, with the schedule. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, I agree. The mentality of it would have been a disappointment if you don't win a state title. How many?
Which is a horrible way to go about
right.
it.
That's really it's not fair to those guys in the first place. But they held up what they wanted to do. They got accomplished what they needed to, and to their credit, they get the title of being the only team in history to do that, which I think is fair after all the how high the bar was set for them. I do think that their approach to this, different guys stepping up at different times was a big deal. Their closeness, their connection. At the end of the day, sometimes players will grade their own play and feel up or down about that, but so many times I heard we won. It's whatever. I scored 2 points. We won. It doesn't matter. I didn't play well here. I'm not happy. The coach is yelling at me, but we won. I heard that a lot from those guys. It was just about the W to even to get that win at against Gibraltar, and then it's like, hey, we punched through to the next level. And so many of them, both them and their parents, when I was in conversations, just weren't satisfied yet. It was a gold ball that they wanted to go get to, and to show up and take the difficult schedule to go into the conference and still not win the conference, which maybe could set you back a little bit if you're bothered by that, and still have this eyes on this final prize of getting that state title, I think is a big deal. They had a new coach, high expectations, a thinner lineup, so to speak, and to fight through all that and still accomplish a 27-4 mark to raise that gold ball up is just a testament to who those guys are. And I'll take that to the bank a lot, because even take them away as basketball players, the individuals that they are, personable kids. There's going to be a lot of success out of this group as to what they accomplish. The way they put others in unselfish acts that they do is should be duly noted too.
We'll talk more about Newman, but we'll talk more about the boys basketball state tournament at the Kohl Center last weekend with our next guest. Coming up next, we'll be talking to Mark Miller from the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook and WisSports.net. So we'll have Mark Miller coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 12. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Final show of the season as we get to the end of the winter's high school sports season, and to talk a bit about what we saw at the Kohl Center last weekend, WIAA State Boys Basketball Tournament. We're very happy to welcome back to the program from WisSports.net and the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook, Mark Miller. Mark, again, thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Chad. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of specifics to get into, but I'm going to throw out one of the generic questions to begin with. You were there all weekend long at the Kohl Center. First things that jump out about what happened last weekend at the WIAA State Basketball Tournament, what jumped out about the whole experience, about the tournament itself, and the things that you noticed in Madison?
Well, I think the crowds were a little better this year than they were last year, and of course better than they've been in several years, because in 2021 we had a couple different locations for the tournament due to COVID, and of course 2020 we ended up canceling right at the sectional level there. So I thought the crowds were better. The enthusiasm was pretty good. I think the biggest surprise to me maybe was West Salem not winning Division II, although certainly I felt that Brillion had a team capable of winning that game. But, I think that probably was the biggest surprise. I had predicted Newman to win in D5 and Luther in D4 and Pewaukee in D2 and De Pere in D1. The only one I got wrong there was picking West Salem over Brillion. So I thought that one was a bit of a surprise, but I thought Jeremy Lorenz of Brillion was one of the outstanding players of the entire tournament, and just, kind of put his team on his back to get to that state championship and a 29-1 record. Boy, you sure can't argue with that. And then, of course, the other thing that stands out, of course, is the three-peat for Pewaukee in Division II, and they'll go for 4 in a row next year with a pretty solid team back, although they obviously lose Milan Manchiljevic to Iowa State. But his younger brother will be back. Nick Janowski will be back. Carson Osterman will be back. So that's a pretty good core. Isaiah Robinson. So they got 4 or 5 guys that saw a lot of minutes this year that will be back to try to get 4 in a row. And then De Pere becoming the first team in state history to win 30 games and to go 30-0 in Division I and just be pretty dominant all season long, including at the state tournament. Although, they didn't blow teams out, but they certainly were the team to beat, and they proved that by winning the 2 games that they played in Madison.
Mark, is there ever, sometimes I know Chad and I go back and say when we talk about the brackets and things like that, well, we wish we would have seen this team go farther, or this team got knocked out, or just, different circumstances sometimes hold, because we're dealing with high school athletes, hold to them not making it as far as we can. And just, looking at some of the games other than the D3 one with Brillion and West Salem, a lot of the games were, a little bit higher in terms of the final score, and 12 plus double-digit points, and sometimes people will argue that those numbers don't always mean that the best 2 teams are there. Was there a team on your radar that you felt that you would have liked to see down there, or is there, are the teams that are supposed to be getting there, I guess, with those final scores being in the championship, where they're a little bit more top heavy with the winner having that disparity in terms of what the scoreboard reads at the end of the night?
Yeah, I think sectional equality is something that coaches are starting to really look at pretty heavily, particularly when you look at Wisconsin Lutheran High School having to play Pewaukee, and they're probably 2 of the better D2 teams, and they've met now, I think, 3 years in a row at the sectional level in Division II. And, of course, the schools are located fairly close to each other, but when you look at the sectionals across the state in all 5 divisions, the travel, other than maybe the schools way up north, is pretty negligible. So, there's some of that. McDonald Catholic got it down to 2 points against Newman in the second half, and they only lost those 2 games all year. Beat a really good team in the sectional final. And then played well in the state semifinals. So, there's a little bit of that. I think in D1, we had two teams at state that were 18-10,
right?
Two of the four, and that probably took a little bit of the excitement away. I think people that would like to look at the sectional equality, it's kind of a hard thing. It's a hard puzzle to solve because you don't always know who's going to, emerge as a great team. Although certainly, we could have forecast Wisconsin, Lutheran, and Pewaukee, well in advance of it. And, had both those teams been there, would there be more excitement to see a kid like Con Knipple from Wisconsin Lutheran play? I think there probably would be. Mm-hmm. Or to see a team like Middleton, which ended the season with 2 losses, would there be more excitement if they had made it to the Final Four in Division I? Probably, and it's a local team, and that probably would have pushed up the attendance a little bit. But, the trick, Jeff, is to come up with something that works for everyone with that sectional equality. Maybe you take the first place team from, like at the Division I level, for example, the first place teams from the Fox Valley Association and the Classic 8, the Greater Metro, and the Big 8, maybe try to spread them around a little bit. Mm-hmm. But, what exactly, how would that look? How would it work? That's the stuff that you'd have to figure out. But I do think that if you could do that, it would make for a better state tournament. Although, as you know, as a former coach, there's no guarantees. You still got to go out and play, and upsets do happen. And, the second season is called that for a reason. Mm-hmm. So, there's no guarantees. But, I think that the pathway to get there for some teams is just so much more difficult than it is for others. So, I'm thinking of Wisconsin Lutheran in particular there. Keep mentioning that one, but that's a big one. And, there were in Division III, I think there were some sectionals that had, just several teams that were ranked within one sectional. And in D1 this year, for example, we had in our last coaches poll on WSN, sectional 2 and 3 had all of the top 10 teams. So sectional 1 and 4 did not have a top 10 team in the last poll of the year. So I think that's what you're getting at. Is there a way to kind of balance that out a little bit? The WIA, I think they would be open to it as long as it would make sense and that they could get, officials and schools to host and, get something maybe that, would make sense, by mid-season or maybe the last half of the season. But it's a tricky puzzle to put together.
Mm-hmm. Again, we're talking to Mark Miller from WisSports.net and the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Well, let's ask about what you saw with Newman, because we've obviously been following Newman all season long, and they finished the job off with their state championship in D5. You had a chance to see them during the course of the year. You brought them down to your Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook tournament back in the middle portion of the campaign. You talked a little bit about McDonald Catholic. Your overall take about the Division 5 tournament was interesting, I thought, on Friday especially. It was such an un-Newman-like win against Royal. Royal fell behind big early, but really it was a grinder, not a real offensive game, more of a grinder for Newman Catholic. Your general impressions about Newman and D5?
Yeah, you're right. That game against Royal was a grinder, and I think a lot of it had to do with the job that Bryce Olson did guarding Mason Cray. But I think a lot of it also had to do with the fact that, when you go down to the Kohl Center, you just don't know how things are going to go. You don't know how they're going to react. Are they going to shoot well? Are they going to have nerves? Are they going to feel the pressure because, hey, they're the favored team and this other team just keeps hanging around and it's frustrating. And, so I think all those things kind of came into play for Newman on Friday. And I saw it with other teams down there, too. For example, Pewaukee, they really, they had to withstand a shot at the buzzer to advance. Nicolay had a 3 at the buzzer down 2, came up short, so they did move on. But and I think De Pere didn't play very well on Friday night either. And, of course, they played better on Saturday. But, yeah, so I thought they survived that game, and I do give a lot of credit to Royal in the defense that they played and the grittiness that they showed. I just thought throughout that game, are they going to be able to score enough, to pull the major upset? And I think Newman won that game more with its defense than its offense. And then, in the championship game, I thought they relaxed a little bit more, played a little better, offensively in particular. And then, stood one of those rallies that the McDonald's has put together all year long. They got it down to 2, and it seemed like they had momentum, and there was plenty of time left. But, when you have Connor Crock able to, and Eli Gustafson able to, rebound and get putbacks, and then, of course, Isaac Seidel and Jackson Fender being able to shoot so well and to rack up 3 points in a hurry. And then Mason just, seeing the floor and his ability to score in different ways, including from outside the arc. It's tough to stop that. And the one thing that I really was impressed with Newman, 2 things actually. I thought Jeff Waldvogel did a great job coaching them and just kind of letting them be who they are this year. When you look at those guys, a lot of them are 3-4 year varsity guys that I thought the style of play that he adapted for that team allowed them to really showcase what they can do. And then I just felt that mentally they were strong, and I think you saw that. I know, Chad, you came down to Stoughton to do that game. When they won that game, my thought was they're going to win the Division 5 state title, because I don't know that there'd be any other D5 teams that could have come into Stoughton on a Saturday that late in the year, particularly after playing for the conference title the night before against Marathon and win that game. So I just kind of felt it was their year, and I think they lived up to it. Not that they didn't have a few bumps in the road, but Prey getting hurt early in the year didn't help. But congrats to all those seniors over there that put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. Probably going back to when they were in 5th grade. So it was kind of fun to watch them, at various times throughout the year and throughout the last couple of years. And it'd be interesting to see where Mason ends up with his college. Obviously, Isaac's going to Concordia, and be interesting to see where Mason ends up.
Well, we're going to ask him about that. He's coming on in the next hour, so we'll find out. We find out some information. Maybe we'll see about that.
Yeah.
Also wanted to touch on D4, because one of the interesting aspects every year, winter sports season is such a long season. Sometimes a team will be playing their best basketball at the end. Sometimes they'll be playing their best basketball a little bit earlier. And I want to ask you about number 1 seed, St. Mary Catholic, because that was a team that defeated Newman at your tournament, the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook Tournament.
Yeah.
And it felt like even in the sectionals, they had to come from behind to beat Auburndale in the sectional final. They had another close call, I believe, during the playoff run as well. And then they lose as a number 1 seed in the semifinals to number 4 Kenosha St. Joe's. Was that a big surprise for you, that result in the semis, where St. Mary Catholic, who had been such a force during the course of the season, fell in the semis?
Well, I picked them to win, but I wasn't shocked that they lost. And the reason being that St. Mary's is a really up-tempo team that, when the shots are falling and they're getting teams in transition, they can really put up points in a hurry. They scored over 100 a couple of times this winter. And they did that against Newman in that game around Christmas. Newman came all the way back. I think they were down like 18 points or something like that, and they came all the way back, took a lead, with about 6 minutes to go or something, and then St. Mary's started to make more shots and kind of pulled away to win it at the end. But, Kenosha St. Joe's made it a half-court game. I knew they would try to do that because they've done that all year. I think they're one of the best coached teams in the state. I really thought, even when I had seen them lose to teams like Dominican, Thomas More, and they went 0-2 against Moore. They went 0-2 against Dominican, 0-2 against Martin Luther, and 0-2 against St. Catherine's, which won that league. But in all 8 of those games, they got better. Now, they didn't win those games, and many of them they lost by double digits. But, they just got better. And like I said, I think that they were so well coached, and they found their roles within that team so well. And, of course, they have a great player in Eric Hennessy, and he showed that, not the 51 points, but I just really enjoyed watching him play. I saw him live during the regular season, And then I saw him on stream because I just enjoy watching him play so much because he just gets after it on every possession. And I wanted to see, what he does. Does that translate when they're playing a team like St. Cat's or Thomas More? And it does. Now, he got off to a great start in that game by hitting a bunch of threes, and I thought, wow, that's probably not a great sign for SMC because that's not really his MO, but, to end up with 51 points and to make 16 of 19 foul shots and to have, I'm trying to remember if he had 8 or 10 assists in that game, was just a remarkable individual performance.
And Mark, I guess my next question is more driven towards other observations you've made. I mean, I like the 3 guys on the mics in here between you, Chad, and I are biased towards Wisconsin. We're biased towards high school basketball. We think it's the greatest thing, and I think our state championship and playoffs, whether you can nitpick at little things, is still awesome. And I think the high school experience is just an awesome thing for athletes to get to do, and a huge part of their lives that they'll remember forever. And I thought, at our state. At the state games with Newman winning their first gold ball ever, the brilliant West Salem, you expect West Salem to win it. Brilliant comes and gets it. St. Joe's was tough in Division IV. De Pere going 30-0, like you said. Pewaukee with the three-peat. I think high school sports in our state is in a great spot. In your with your connections and your people that and other things you might get to observe just based on your occupation, do you get to see other state championships around the United States or parts of their tournaments that you think would be good for Wisconsin to invest in, or are we just in a much better place where you see other ones kind of trying to catch up to Wisconsin? Is there things that we need to improve on, or things that are going really well that you've observed, I guess, that are just great for the state in terms of high school basketball overall?
Yeah, well, Illinois had their state tournament the weekend before ours, and Minnesota's going on this week. So, I keep an eye on that. And, I've seen some of those teams play, whether it's in our border battle or, during the summer and that sort of thing. I do think that, from for the most part, that Wisconsin, does really, really well when compared to the other states in terms of attendance, excitement, student participation, not only, with the players, but with the students in the student section, the way the WI handles it, as far as just the overall experience that the kids have. For example, you guys were probably there on Saturday for the state championship games, and they do a really neat intro with the scoreboard and lights and everything, and just make it a great experience for the kids. The one thing that I could say that maybe we could do. I think sectional equality is a big thing. If we can somehow come up with a plan for that, and then the other thing, I think if we can get a couple more bigger schools to state, and one of the things that I would like to see, and I think there's some momentum for them, is 6 teams in Division I, and to give the Valley Conference and the Big Rivers and Superior and the schools up your way that are Division I, give them one of those 6 berths. Because as it stands right now, unless you get a group like Stevens Point had, it's going to be really difficult for those teams to get to Madison in the future. It's just, going through the Fox Valley Association is just, it's too much. And we've seen that. I mean, this year in particular, Eau Claire Memorial wins the Big Rivers as a 1 seed, and they lose to a 16 seed, Oshkosh West in the regional, and Marshfield winning the Valley. They lose to a Appleton North team that was around 500 in the first game. So I do think that if we could get a few more big schools there, we used to have 8, and we've had 4 now for over a decade. I think if we can go to 6 teams in Division I, the top 2 would get a bye, but that would give 2 more big schools the opportunity to participate at the state tournament while not taking anything away from the other 4 divisions. I think that would be a move in the right direction. And guys, we have that extra session because on Thursday, instead of starting in the morning, we start in the afternoon. So, I think that as far as the schedule and having a 3-day tournament, it would still fit that. So it wouldn't create too many hardships. And the other thing you could do with that too is balance those sectionals out a little bit. So there is a little bit more equality. because, by and large, not always, of course, but by and large, the bigger schools usually draw better and a lot of times have the better individual players. I mean, that's any team that gets to state's going to have some great players. We saw that certainly with the Newman team. But, that would be one thing I think that we could do relatively easy and, relatively quickly that would help.
Preach. I think both Jeff and I have talked about that as well. 100%. I think that would be a terrific improvement for the state tournament. I got to ask you real quickly because sometimes people say controversy sells. I was looking at my favorite line because, they put out play-by-play for the entire tournament. And in the game between Whitnall and La Crosse Central, it says 0-0-0-0, 2 hero foul drawn. What did you think?
You mean at the shot at the end?
Yeah, that's what the line says. Foul drawn. And he did sell it. Yeah. I was there. I was watching that one, and he sold it. And it was a tough way to Central to fall.
The guy that made the call is a very veteran official. Called it immediately. You hate to see a game end like that. I thought La Crosse Central handled it very, very well as far as sportsmanship and not putting the blame on the official. In hindsight, obviously, you would have liked to have seen that game go into overtime. Do I think it was a foul? Well, I was way across the way there. I wasn't in front of me or anything, so I can't really comment. And I looked at the replay. I think it was probably 50-50, but, at that point in the game with that much time left, it's one of those that you wish, maybe it just would have ended and gone to overtime. And, that was a tough one, no question. I mean, that's part of the game, though. I mean, sometimes things happen like that, Some things happen that nobody can really, look ahead and forecast. And yet, it's kind of part of the game, whether it's an injury or a big call or, the officials are as much a part of the game as the kids are, and the coaches and the fans. So just one of those things that, I wish it would have ended differently, but, it didn't.
Well, and Mark, I got to ask with your, your expertise, your knowledge of high school boys basketball in the state of Wisconsin. Obviously, it's the end of an era. And anybody that knows basketball in the state knows who Jerry Pettigrew is and knows his role at Cuba City and knows what he's done for high school basketball in general. Just from your relationship with him, how big of a deal is that it is the end of an era with him? And Chad and I were talking off air just who you think is there a viable replacement? Is there an assistant? Are they bringing in somebody new? And we see your coaches changes up there, but yet I don't think that one's been filled in yet, which is tough for anybody to come in there and fill that one. So I guess your thoughts. I think a record that'll never be touched, or maybe not during our lifetime for the amount of wins he's accumulated.
Oh, as you know, coaches just don't last that long anymore. It's such a different world now than when Jerry first got going. When guys were doing football and basketball and maybe even baseball or track, and doing it for 30, 40 years. The time demands on young families are just really, really hard. Jerry is kind of one of the last guys from that era. In fact, you could really say he was one of the last guys from that era. And, he's still going to stay very involved with his executive director position with the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association. He's called me several times, even since the season's ended, looking for information or, checking out ideas for the WBCA. So he's going to stay involved and he's going to be a part of the game until he can't do it anymore. He's very sharp. I thought he coached really well this year. But, at his age now, I think just the day-to-day, Jeff, this, the day-to-day grind, throughout the winter, you get tired, and even though he doesn't have a young family at home that takes him away from it, I think for him it'll be kind of nice next year to, maybe just go to games as a fan. And although I know he's going to miss the relationship with the kids and with the school and the community and, competing on a very good conference. There is no heir apparent. His son was the assistant this year, but his schedule right now and so forth doesn't. He said he's not going to apply for it because of that. It's going to be somebody from probably from the outside, and like you say, those are some big shoes to fill. But it's a great city. It's a great job. It's a really good school. So I think they'll get somebody to take Jerry's spot. But yeah. And Aaron, you're exactly right, Jeff. That's a record that will not be touched with over 1,000 wins.
Yeah.
I think right now John Murphy is in second place, and he's around 600 some. So, and John's my age. We actually graduated the same year, so we're 60. He could go for a while yet, but he'd have to go a heck of a long time.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, again, we really appreciate your time and the writing at WisSports.net and your Wisconsin basketball yearbook. I know that you don't take many breaks because the basketball continues, but look forward to having you back and talk to you again when we get back together next year. Okay, sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Chad. I appreciate it. Mark Miller from WisSports.net and the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook. We're coming back next. BJ Brandt from Wausau West, the hockey coach and also the president of the Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association. We'll talk about how the hockey state tournament in its new venue went. That's coming up next here on Bull Falls Radio 98.9. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Thanks again to Mark Miller for joining us, talking about the state high school boys basketball tournament. Well, a couple of weeks ago, it was the state hockey tournament held for the first time at Bob Suter's Capitol Ice Arena in Middleton. And a man that was part of the decision to be able to move the tournament to Capitol Ice Arena from the Alliant Energy Center, the head coach of the Wausau West Warriors boys hockey team, but also the president of the Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association, BJ Brandt. And BJ, obviously it was a situation where a lot of folks wanted to see the tournament moved. It felt like it was definitely a much more energetic state tournament, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, it was, the atmosphere was exactly what the coaches wanted, and I think we wanted to create a sectional final type feel, and I think that was created. I think having Oregon and Verona there helped that considerably because they were there. That was just massive crowds, and I think it made it a ticket, and you looked at the crowd from Mosinee and Oregon game. Phenomenal. Standing room only, 3 people deep in the standing room only. Is that great for us? It's great for the kids on the ice. It's not great for the person that got there a little bit late and is 3 deep in the back, and it's a level of discomfort to watch. Whether it's a grandchild, a son, a daughter, whatever, play. I understand that side of it. But from the coaches' side, where we wanted to create a number one, create a great environment, number two, create a ticket, create some buzz around it, I think the venue did a fantastic job at that. And we've seen a lot of positive feedback from the coaches. You call some of the guys, how did it look on TV? How did it look? And just from that perspective, there wasn't the empty red seats. Mm-hmm. There was kids excited to cheer on their classmates. Communities filled the arena to cheer their kids on. And it was just, I thought it was super positive from that perspective. Certainly, there's things we need to work on. But I think overall, it was a really good first round at Cap Ice.
What did you hear back from, did you have a chance to hear from some of the participants, the players? And you said the coaches as well, but especially the players. Did you get a chance to hear what they said? What their feelings were about the experience for them?
No, we did not get any player feedback. I'll be reaching out here to the coaches now that they've had a chance to digest it a little bit and get some feedback on the 8 teams that were there. Because there's things, like busing arrivals and getting into locker rooms and just some of the logistical things that Alliant was able to provide because it was such a big facility. Right. It's a smaller facility. You've got a certain amount of locker rooms. But, they were able to run the women's U18 international tournament in there this past summer or the year before. So I think they've been able to do some of those things. But I know there'll be some feedback on that. And it's just a matter of working with, LeVar and the WIA to make sure that that we make it better for year two, because there were certainly going to be a lot of things that were learned throughout, and we have a call coming up here in a week and a half with the WIA to kind of regroup a little bit and kind of think about where we're going as a hockey group.
When you talk about problems you kind of like to have is the fact that it was jam-packed. And I will say that the Saturday of the championship games, I had put on my social media Friday about, I said, in the past I was so far away broadcasting. And this year I was right in the corner, right against the boards. And I said it was different. And I did not really make a judgment call, because I think there are positives and negatives for both areas. Up high, you can really see everything develop. Down low, you really feel the game a lot better, but may not be able to see it as quickly, quite as well. But there was somebody that I have no idea who this person was, where they're from, but they said, well, maybe for the media it's better, but it wasn't for the fans. And again, that was one person who reached out, saw what I said, and took my comment as an endorsement, which, I think it was a better tournament. I'm not afraid to say that. But again, I think from my point of view, I could be in a better spot to see things as they develop. But the idea that there were some fans, and I think I have heard this anecdotally more than once, that there were some people that, as you said, may have got there a little bit later, may have had obstructed views. Is there anything that can be done in terms of making sure that you understand what the fan experience was as well?
Yeah, I think that's what, when we meet with the WIA, we talk about and what those solutions are. Obviously, WIA and LeVar have got to figure that out a little bit. I know he had threw some ideas out of ways to improve while the event was going on, as ways, because the biggest part was that upper level. There was a little bit of bleachering up there and a lot of standing room. And I think maybe there's some opportunities there for a little more bleachering to make sure that people can see when they walk in. That was, I got some feedback from some people, and it wasn't positive. They were saying we went backwards. We did all these other things that took the game backwards or took the venue backwards. And I think some of that comes from, one of the things I talked about in our coaches meeting was, yes, Madison guys, I get it. You play in this arena in your conference games. You play, you practice here. Your youth games are here. And with the Alliant, we didn't have that. You never played in that arena. But I understand it, but I also understand that this is better for our sport right now. And I think that's what we have to focus on. Because if you look at the other venues throughout the state, you've got Resch. Everybody wants Resch. Resch isn't going to work. Resch has said that they don't have room for us.
Right. And even if you were at the Resch, there would be some of the same issues that we had at Alliant.
Yeah.
There would be, because you're not going to fill up the Resch Center either.
No, you look at, I think the biggest crowd was, we had multiple sellouts, which was fantastic for single game sellouts, which is over 2,200, 2,300 fans and loud and just a great environment. I think to the Hudson-Verona game, that was number one, just an electric environment in a great hockey game. Just an absolute great hockey game, and it was just a super experience for those student athletes, for the fans, for the coaches that were coaching, for the people that understood where we were and where we were at. I think they saw some of that. You have to look at, that was year one. We're going to get better in year two. Parking was an issue. Going in and out of the arena for single games was an issue. Because we were behind. You look at the schedule of things, and we were fortunate with good weather, because basically when you go from sellout to sellout, you have 2,200 people in the arena. They got to leave, but you have 2,200 people sitting outside waiting to fill the arena. So there's some logistics things that they're going to have to work through. And
I shudder even thinking about that.
We had good weather, and if it was raining, that would have been a significant. We would have heard a lot more negative feedback than we did before. There were some positives, and we lucked out a little bit on weather, but I think overall we improved the environment for the student athletes, for the coaches, for the fans. They're closer to the action. It looked better on TV. Look at the selling point of it. We're fortunate enough to have the statewide network. So to have that and that be the picture of what gets shown, that's fantastic for our sport.
And don't let the perfect get in the way of getting better. That's probably the biggest takeaway, because like you said, there are areas that whenever you change, I don't care if you have moved into a 7,500 seat venue that would have been or a 5,000 seat venue that may have been perfect, there would have been issues. there's always going to be issues when you change, but don't let the perfect get in the way of taking a step forward. And I think bottom line is, and as somebody that was there, I think it was definitely a step forward.
Yeah, I mean, the question would be like, okay, so if not Cap Ice, where? Then it's back to the Alliant, and nobody wanted to go back to the Alliant. You know, you look at the opportunities. Everybody wants LeBon. There are logistical issues with LeBon just between their UW men's program, the women's program, and to have the space for us,
right.
It's not possible. And I think the more people understand what's available to us and what options we have, I think they understand that this is a pretty good environment. We can, in knowing that there's going to be some expansion potentially at Cap Ice, there's going to be some improvements from year 1 to year 2, it's going to create a great environment. And I think the best part about it is even for the games that weren't sellouts, it still felt high energy. It still felt like the place was full. It wasn't, 75 red seats in the front row. It gave it a much better feel for even the games that weren't sellouts.
I did pitch to the mayor of Wausau yesterday about getting a new arena here in Wausau that could have the state tournament right here. I know there's some plans. She said there's some plans, that are being developed for some new ice in this community. And frankly, I mean, you've been around here a long time. I've been here a long time. It feels like this area could really use another facility, couldn't it?
Oh my gosh, Chad, we could use another facility for a lot of reasons, but I think if our community is able to pull this off, I think you'll find that it's not just the hockey community that's going to benefit from it. It's going to benefit the entire community. From the events and activities you can host in the facility, depending on size, to the events you're going to draw from other communities that are going to want to be here. I love the idea of the state tournament being in central Wisconsin. I love the idea that Superior doesn't have to drive 6 hours to get to Madison.
Right.
They can drive 3 hours and get to Wausau, and everybody can drive 3 hours and get to Wausau, and provides a great destination spot for our community. So I would love to see a facility like that. I know there's talks, I know there's plans, and now it's just a matter of buttoning it up.
And also about the state tournament, and on my program last week, or actually a couple of weeks ago, was talking to one of the boys basketball writers from WisSports.net about, and I think it's not just hockey, there's basketball as well that has this feeling that we're missing something at state because of the cut down of Division I teams at the state tournament. And there's been some, and I know we've talked about this in the past, about an 8-4 being the perfect format for the state tournament. There's some talk on the basketball side of maybe adding 2 teams to Division I in state basketball. Would that be something that would be a step forward for hockey as well, to have a couple of more Division I teams make it to the state tournament, even if you can't get to what you would ideally like an 8-4?
Yeah, I think as a coaches group, I think everybody wants more Division I teams. I think they love the 2-division model. We've talked about it. We've said, can we do a 6 and a 4? Because that now gets more Division I teams there. I know, just talking to you, that 6 model, I think, provides an opportunity there to get more Division I teams, to get more people from other communities there. You look at the way that things went for us to Division II. We've had 11 or 12 different communities represented at Division II, but only 6 represented at Division I. So you look at the way that we expand that to get more representation at Division I, and I think when you bring in Division I teams, you're going to bring in more people, and I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I watched the boys and girls basketball tournaments on TV, and I love our environment better. I thought the tighter knit, smaller environment was great for those student athletes, and if we can find a way, and maybe we work together to do this, because change within the WIA happens slowly.
Yes, it does.
And I think it's by design to make sure that a knee-jerk decision doesn't affect down the road. Now we're running into that a little bit, Chad, on the overtime side for hockey, because we want changes there. Because going down to 4-on-4 and 3-on-3 to decide a state tournament is just, there is no other place in the country that the most important games that we get on to 4-on-4 and 3-on-3. And I think that was a television-based decision that we were, we weren't forced to. I mean, we weren't forced to do it, but we were encouraged as a group to suggest it. And
you want to keep the TV people happy.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's important. It's important.
It's absolutely important. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our student athletes get to play 5-on-5 longer to determine that. Like, that was my one worry going into the state tournament and always going into the state tournament since we've made these changes. Because in basketball, they play 5-on-5. They don't go down to 4-on-4. They don't go down to 3. And I know it's different because there's a lot more points, but no other state tournament super important game is decided by less than what their full strength is. So I think there's some really good things that I think can come out of this. I love the idea of expanding it. There's been talk that the girls group would like to go to a different weekend, possibly, maybe even not a different venue, but a different weekend to showcase the girls tournament a little bit and expand some of that. And that if that were to happen, that opens up more ice time for the boys where the 8 and 4 might be a possibility. There's probably things in that I don't even know about that will determine that decision. But there's some really cool ideas being talked about. And I love that, another sport is talking about trying to expand some of their bigger schools.
Well, I guess I'll have to leave it there. I love the winter sports, but I'm ready for some spring sports. But as long as there's still snow out there, it's great to be able to talk to you about some hockey. Again, appreciate you stopping on by, and we'll catch you again real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chad.
Wausau West hockey coach B.J. Brandt. We'll have more coming up here on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. And welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. It is our final show of the season with the conclusion of the winter high school sports season. And one of the great stories of the winter high school sports season, Newman Catholic winning a Division V state boys basketball championship. And to talk about that, talk about the season, talk about the future, and talk about a whole bunch more for the second time this season. We're very happy to welcome back to the program Newman Catholic's senior guard, Mason Prane. Mason, first of all, congratulations on earning that state championship, and also congratulations on earning Division V first-team All-State.
Thank you, Chad.
Well, let's jump right in. Obviously, it's been such a long journey. I mean, you were a starter as a freshman. The first season, go 5-17, earn a lot of bumps and bruises, win a lot of basketball games for your sophomore and junior years, win a lot of basketball games as a senior, and then ultimately finally able to get to the top of the mountain. What's it been like in the last, 4 or 5 days since you were able to win that championship? What thoughts have you been able to process about this journey that ultimately led to a state championship?
Honestly, it's for me and I think most of the guys, it still hasn't really kicked in yet that we won that state championship. I mean, like you said, freshman year, me playing a lot of games and not having a good record, and then just continually improving. I think once it does sink in, it's going to show that all the hard work paid off, and it's just really cool to see that we won state this year.
And Mason, again, I just through text and getting a hold of you to come on the show, how as a Newman community, proud we are of you guys. How what a great accomplishment that is. What a you talk about having no regrets and doing stuff to the fullest. Just that experience, I think, allowed you to do that. So just incredibly proud of what you guys accomplished, and congratulations on all, not only the team awards and accolades, but plus the individual awards. But I guess rolling into my question, how hard has it been with the pressure? You guys came in with you're a really good class of seniors that came in as a really good class of freshmen, and every year there's always these expectations that you got to get there, you got to make it there, and now to kind of say we did it, we went as far as we possibly could, and we accomplished all that, and we get to bring that gold ball back. Has it been stressful at times? Have you guys thought about that pressure, or is it relieved now? I mean, you guys, what were the emotions kind of in this ride that you've had from start to finish?
Oh yeah, I would say there's definitely been some pressure because, like you said, even as middle schoolers, this class was kind of looked at as like a special group, and a lot of people thought we were going to be special. But I mean, at the same time, I think we were the 1 seed in playoffs for the past 3 years in a row. So, when teams see that they have to play Newman Catholic and see that they're playing the 1 seed, I mean, I don't want to say that they're scared of us, but they know that they have to play a really good basketball team. So there's definitely some pressure, but at the same time, it kind of helps us a little bit because we know we're on the top, and we know that teams are, they're looking at Newman and they see that they have to play a really tough team.
And how much fun? I mean, people laugh at me because sometimes I went to Newman, I coached at Newman, I'm still at Newman, so I've never really left Newman. I could just probably put a bed down in my classroom and say I live there, and that's my permanent address. But one of the things that I take personal pride in is the guys that I played sports with and grew up. Knowing in all the different sports, and especially the basketball field, that it's a proud moment for me to still say I have those guys as friends today, and we're still just as close as we were years ago. How important has that been in this journey of attaining the state championship, the connections and the friendships that you've had with the kids in your class?
Yeah, that's like the biggest thing for me. It's really not even about basketball, like you were saying. It's just about, all the memories that we've made over the past, we've been playing with each other since third grade. So just, I can name countless memories that we've had playing basketball. And then, even after basketball, going to each other's houses and messing around and stuff like that. So just to have these guys by my side throughout the whole process has just been amazing.
Again, we're talking to Mason Prey from the Newman Catholic Cardinals, Division V State Boys Basketball Champions, here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. You've had an opportunity to play basketball all over the place, travel around, play in big events, play in big games. What was it like playing at the Kohl Center this past weekend? Was that somehow different than any other experience you've had on the basketball court?
Not really, because for me, like you said, I played a lot of basketball and I played it all over the place, but as soon as we arrived and as soon as we got the first look at the floor, it kind of hit me a little bit that, like, oh, wow, we're really playing at the Kohl Center. But as soon as the tip, it kind of just felt like another game to me. And, I think probably some of the other guys probably felt that, like, they knew that they were playing the Kohl Center, so they were thinking about it. But for me personally, it just felt like another basketball game.
Let's talk about the two games. Let's start off with the semifinal against Royal on Friday. They decided they were going to keep Mason Prey right in their sights the entire time. It was a grind, wasn't it? I mean, that whole game was a bit of a grind. You got off to a good start as a team. Then it just it was very difficult the rest of the way. What was the feeling like in that game when you faced off against Royal? Because that was a very un-Newman-like game. Usually you ride the Newman offense to victories. You guys had to use a lot of defense and rebounding in order to win that game. That was a real grinder, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Going into it, we kind of knew that, from watching film and scouting reports and stuff, we knew that they were just a scrappy, gritty, hard-nosed team. And we knew that it was kind of be like that. But, I think we were up, 17-3 at one point. So at that point, we were kind of like, wow, okay, it's kind of easy to score at the Kohl Center. There's not really a difference. But then they just cranked up their defensive intensity, and we weren't really ready for it. But, like you said, the rebounding aspect, obviously, Eli had one heck of a game on the rebounds. I think he had 16 or 17, and obviously Connor's a big rebounder too. So we didn't really do well offensively, but we did all the other stuff well, and that's why we were able to win the game.
Do you think looking at your classmates, the depth of your class, so to speak? Because sometimes the thing I've always heard about Newman is they're not very deep. They only go 6, but pound for pound, I think every guy that plays in the rotation has just a tremendous amount of stuff to offer. Whether it's your type of game, Isaac's game, Jackson's, Eli, Connor, Thomas, you go down the list of what everybody is able to offer. I think that presented you guys as a very deep Division V team that really made matchups very difficult. Do you think that was obviously a big strength in your team is what each individual could offer and how they could rise to the occasion?
Yeah, going into the season, just like thinking about our roster and stuff, me and some other people thought the depth might be an issue, but once the season started, we came together and we realized that, we have 6-7 really good athletes. I mean, not all of them are necessarily basketball players, but they're all athletes who want to compete and want to win, and, that's what we were able to do.
And then a real good matchup in the championship game, a McDonald squad that had lost one game all season long. Your team came out, played a really good first half, played a really good game. I mean, there's a good opponent, had a 14-point lead at the intermission, were able to withstand a rally in the second half. And we saw, I thought, Mason Prey at his best, especially closing things out. What was your feeling on Saturday? Because obviously it had to be a little frustrating having a tough offensive game where you were such a focus for your opponents all weekend long, but then you were able to find it and really, I thought, lead that team over the finish line on Saturday. That had to be personally satisfying in addition to the team aspect as well.
Yeah, for sure. After Friday's game, I was definitely a little frustrated, not in the team, but in myself, just with the way I played. I felt like I could have played better, but we won, so it didn't really matter. So, Saturday, I just wanted to go out there and do whatever we could to win. And, luckily, teammates got the ball in my hands when we needed it. And, I've been doing that all season, and we were able to get the win.
You personally, you've shown for yourself as an individual player, have shown, a lot of composure on the court. You guys have been, you and your teammates have been in a lot of different situations and tested throughout not only your career, but even this season with the strength of schedule that you guys had. Being honest, was there any, when those two teams, you gave them some blows, you got them both down, and then they both came back at you, were there any nerves, any worried point, or was it just, hey, we've done this a million times where we finished out these games? Because I think one of Newman's greatest assets is if teams want to beat you, they got to jump out on you early because you guys shoot free throws so well down the stretch and you got such good ball handlers and teams can't press you. So so playing from behind, I think, makes it difficult for those teams. But both teams at the Kohl Center came at you twice, and even Gibraltar came at you a little bit too. But you guys took the blows and you just steadied the ship. Any nervousness in that ever? That hey, we got to get our stuff together, or just hey, stay the course, we're going to be fine. What was kind of the attitude throughout those runs that teams had at you?
On Friday's game, we were, like I said, we started off 17-3, and then they came back a little bit, as you were saying, but. In the Royal game, since, we got up to such a big lead, we kind of, I don't want to say that we knew we were going to win, but in the back of our heads, we kind of didn't know that we were going to win. We just had to keep doing our thing because we had a lead. But on Saturday's game against McDonald, we've watched McDonald a lot this season, and the one thing we knew about them is that coming out of halftime, they come out really strong, and that's exactly what they did against us. So I think McDonald cut it to what was it? Two or four, or something like that.
Yep, got it too.
In my head, I was a little worried, but I just knew with our guys and how far we've came along this season that we were going to pull it out. So,
and how big a deal was it for you, to have take your teammates? You and Isaac maintained. When teams threw defenses, it was triangle and twos at the two of you, or they'd throw a box and one at one of you, or they'd shadow guard you with two of their better defensive players all the time. How big of deal is it for other players, like whether it's Jackson hitting from the outside off a quick skip, or Connor going inside and doing some damage and grabbing some boards, or Eli, I thought, just down the stretch of your playoff run, coming alive and staying out of foul trouble, D'ing up the big guys inside and controlling both the offensive and defensive glass. I think that's a big deal and a testament. How big was it for other guys to continue to step up, even as the season went on, and it still seemed like the sky was coming to an end because you had only so much time left, but you guys just continue to rise each and every game. How important was that those guys kept stepping up?
Those guys have been huge this year. Obviously teams are going to come into the games trying to take away Isaac, but if they take away Isaac and I, then they have, we have Jackson or Eli or Connor or Thomas. All those guys are capable of scoring on any given night. And we kind of knew that. We know that going into games. They're going to try to take me and Isaac away, and if they do, then someone's going to have to step up, and luckily down the stretch of the playoffs, people were able to step up, and that's why we were able to get the gold ball.
And I know I want to always get as many guys' names as I can, but even Thomas, I remember watching you guys in the hallway at the beginning of the year, and he's on because he's a football guy and he's on the fence, and you guys are like, come on out, it'll be fun. And I just thought, in the game against Royal and the game against McDonald, he came in and gave quality minutes where he D'd up. He made some nice passes off the opposite block to the other side of the block when somebody was open. He got the double. I think it was a big deal, not only for his haircut to be there, but everything else that he was able to attain and give to you guys down the stretch.
Yeah, Thomas was huge for us this year. I was talking to him all football season. He didn't even know if he was going to play basketball, but I think it's pretty safe to say that he's happy he did now. But even just in practice, he would give me looks. He would face guard me every day. He would make me better. And his saying is iron sharpens iron, and that's what we go by. So just Thomas being there, even on the bench and stuff, he just made the season a heck of a lot better.
Again, we're talking to Mason Prey from the Newman Catholic Cardinals here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. When we had you on early this season, it was very early in the season, and I know that we talked about going into your senior season, the things that you wanted to accomplish, and to go through this, I guess, in a sense, your last dance with Newman Catholic, beyond winning the state championship, beyond being a first-team all-state performer. Did the season give you everything that you wanted it to, both in terms of the on-court activity, the off-court activity with your teammates? Was it everything that you wanted it to be when we spoke back early in the season?
Oh, yeah. I would say it was. Obviously we had a successful year, but we also, there was some adversity. There was a few tough times. There was a few losses, but from those losses we were able to learn from them and make ourselves better. Like, obviously we didn't win the conference. We didn't get that conference championship, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter because we won state. So that's kind of where our mindset's at with that. But yeah, the season was great.
And what, I guess, jumping forward, because I think that now that you've been down at state, I'm you're on spring break, so still enjoying those wins and just relaxing with some downtime from school and everything. Have you gotten any farther in the college search and where you want to end up, or any closer to saying it's between here or undecided? I think the first time when you're on, it was undecided, and I know coaches and teams have been looking at you a little bit as the season wound down there, and obviously getting down to state even exposes you to more people that might not know who you are. Any further conclusions or anything that, just out of curiosity for Chad and I, of where you might end up for college?
There's no final decision yet, but there's a couple of schools that I'm looking at. I kind of wanted to wait until after the season, but now the season's over. So once spring break's over, I'll probably sit down and discuss it with my parents and make a decision. But as of right now, not yet. I have not decided where I'm going.
And speaking of, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember, your dad's team made it to state, and did they lose in the quarterfinals? They lose to the Final Four in the semifinals?
Yeah, I think they lost to Marquette.
Yeah, they weren't in the championship, is I guess what I'm getting at. How big a deal has it been to just have that time with your dad to discuss it and talk about, I don't know, maybe you guys don't, you just focus on what's going on with you, but I know sometimes when the father-son combo have both had that experience to a degree, you share things and moments about it and why it's a big deal. Has that been something you and your dad have done, or something that's been cool to have that a similar experience, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously it's a little bit different because he's old, so that was back in the day, but yeah, he's been there for me throughout this whole thing, and it's just to hug him after the state championship and see my dad in tears, just him being so proud of me and so happy for me. It was an awesome feeling.
And finally, I think we have to let people know, where are you talking to us from?
I'm in a car right now, and I'm in Florida. We're driving to a spring training baseball game.
Well, I appreciate you, during spring break. I mean, the timing could not have been more perfect to win a state championship on Saturday and be able to go off on spring break and get away from the snow here in Wisconsin. So we definitely appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. And Jeff, before we let Mason get to the ball game, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, just again, if you you wouldn't mind telling, I think you're with Jackson and Eli, right?
And Thomas, yep.
And Thomas. So make sure, if you don't mind passing the word along, telling those guys that we're really proud of them from the Newman community, and tell them congrats from me. And again, thank you for making the time, and for you guys. I just think it's an awesome moment to say when. For you guys and your team, that we are the only one that has ever hosted that gold ball in boys basketball history, and that's something that'll be in that case and be there forever. And in high school is so much about not having any regrets, and for you guys to go out and do that and do something nobody else has done, I think is just a testament to who you guys are, and it's an ultimate experience, and hopefully people understand what a big deal that is.
Yeah, I'll let them know for sure. And Chad, thank you for for everything you've done this season and throughout our entire career. We really appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be down at the Kohl Center as well. That was a thrill for myself and a thrill watching you guys finish the job. Again, Mason, it's been a joy watching you. Best of luck in all your next endeavors. And again, really appreciate you spending a little time with us while you get to the ballpark down in Florida.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for having me.
That's Mason Prey, again, state champion with the Newman Cardinals, first team All-State in Division 5 as well, joining us here on Bull Falls Radio. We're going to take a quick time out, and we'll talk to one of those old guys. We'll talk to the former coach at Newman Catholic who coached Mason's father at State back in the 90s and coached Jeff Gress down at State in the 90s as well. We'll talk to current Wisconsin Rapids head coach Dan Witter coming up next. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Again, thanks to Mason Prey joining us live from Florida. And it's great that he was able to join us. And he also had some of his teammates in the car, we found out after we got off the air with them. But you can just, what experiences?
Yeah, just again, it's got to be enjoyable to win that state title, do it with your buddies, and then you're going and hanging out on vacation, and at the same time to make sure you mention those guys all in good graces when they're sitting in the car right next to you.
And right now we are very happy to welcome got you as a Newman graduate, and we got another one here, former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach, currently the head coach of the Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln Red Raiders, president of the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association as well. We're very happy to welcome back to the program Dan Witter. Coach, great to have you back on the program.
Thanks for having me.
I know you were at the state tournament, and wearing that Newman alumni hat had to be a thrill for someone who's put so much heart and soul into that program as well, to see them get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's somebody who's, I spent 4 years there as a student. I was 11 years there as a teacher. So, 15 years of your life spent at a place. So it's always been a special place. I'm a Wausau guy, and that's where I'm from. And more importantly, Newman was basically my home the whole time I was at home.
And Coach, just from, obviously being at a lot of state tournaments from.
Hello?
Oh, are you still there, Coach?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Can you hear Jeff now?
Can
Jeff?
You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Anyways, my question was, you've obviously, you've logged a lot of hours, not only when you were as a player, as a coach, as just a participant over, of watching the state championship in all the games, and having analysis on it, having observations from whether you're doing play-by-play or just being a spectator at times. Any overall thoughts? From what you watched this weekend, there's great things happening with the Pewaukee three-peated, Newman's first gold ball. A lot of good things I thought happened. How about some of your observations? What you thought?
Yeah, it was obviously a great weekend for Wisconsin basketball. I thought some of the games and the talent level. I mean, watching the Division I and Division II. Even the semifinals, you're just looking at those kids going, Jesus, these guys are 6'7", 6'8", and the stuff they can do. And then of course the personal, I don't know if it's a journey or whatever, with Newman being involved and being down there for being in the WIA for the first time. I know there was a lot of, when they said the first time at the state tournament, there's a few old Newman alumni that had their feathers ruffled a little bit by that, because there were some state teams that I was lucky enough to be involved in, and there were state teams prior to my time even at Newman that were actually at the state tournament when it was in Milwaukee, and it was with them.
Coach, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I heard some clicking for some reason there. I'm not sure what's going on with the phone at times there, but just want to make sure we're still connected.
Yeah, I'm still here. This is my cell phone, so we're good.
Okay, very good.
And Coach, I guess just I guess getting your personal opinion of what you think. Again, the amount of time from being, like you said, from being a player to being a coach at a couple different schools where you were in the state title games. What do you think overall that you see is the most consistent? Is there a consistent recipe that these programs that are down there show over and over that you see like, okay, yeah, they got this factor that's a big deal? Is there some specific recipe that's a specific part of that program or of programs that are down there that make them those elite teams?
Well, I think, and this is just personal, the Rapids team that we went down in 04-05. And most of the teams, even when I was watching, Arrowhead, some of they, even though they have, great players, which all of them do, there's a certain amount of that they know where to go and they play as a team, and there's unselfishness, and I listened to what Mason had to say too, and because I was watching some of the guys even from Pewaukee, that were deferring maybe to sometimes when they maybe were going to take the shot. But you have to have a ton of talent, and then you have to be lucky too. So just having talent alone does not necessarily mean success. You have to, there's certain times when certain things happen, and maybe it, like I think that Newman game was down to 2 or 3 points at one time, and then. Then you hit a couple shots and whatnot. And so I think being good, and then there is some luck involved, but I also think there's a camaraderie involved in a team that, and the intangibles that, the right guys get the shots, or they trust their teammates, or, and most of them, were pretty good defensively. That was a commonality too. But in all the years that I've done it, it's been teams that have, not only had talent and skill, but also had, they played together.
Again, we're talking to Dan Witter, the head boys basketball coach at Wisconsin Rapids and the president of the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association here on Bull Falls Radio. Watching De Pere over the weekend in D1 to finish undefeated. It's a long winter sports season, and back when you talked about your team in 04-05, your team made it to state undefeated. How difficult is it to go through the winter sports season is the long season in high school sports. To go through a season, to have that consistency, to be able to be undefeated, and for De Pere to finish it off undefeated, it's an incredible accomplishment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they were 30-0, I think was the ending thing. The team that I coached was 25-1. We lost to Wesley Matthews Madison Memorial in the semis. And at that time, there was 8 Division I teams, so you had to win 3 games to win it. And I think just remembering our journey when we were I think I've coached 4 teams that have won 20 games, and there's games that you probably should lose at times. They're close, or with injuries, or to be lucky enough to stay healthy for a whole winter season, especially with what we've went through the last few years, with COVID and things of that nature. So to be able to do that and they played Pewaukee and beat them during the season, I believe. And so to do that is phenomenal. And because it wasn't an easy path, even at the state tournament, they were down a couple times, teams. And it's a tribute to the kids and the coaching staff and their program.
And Coach, you putting your WBCA president hat on for a little while, do you think that there's we talked with Mark Miller earlier about some of the improvements or strengths of the Wisconsin State Tournament. Do you see any like that? I know, Chad, off air we talk about having 6 teams in Division I, trying to get closer back to that 18 with that Thursday slot being open in the morning. With the possibilities of trying to bring some teams from different geographical locations, if you would look at doing the sectionals a little bit different based on the way they are. Do you from what you see and what you've witnessed, do you see any improvements or any thoughts that could make already what a great state tournament it is for, and what great high school basketball we have in the state of Wisconsin? Improvements that you could see that could happen in the tournament series?
Well, yeah, and I'll correct you. I'm no longer the president, but I am the Division I rep. So you're president. I was president for 3 years, and now I'm the Division I rep. I'm also on the advisory board. When we'll meet in April here and talk about some of what you just said, the possibilities of improvements, whether it be shot clock, whether it be tweaks in seating, whether it be the trying to get. There's been 2 or 3 proposals of trying to get 6 Division I teams down there with. Teams playing Thursday morning, that slot. The WIA is locked into a contract till 2025 for just having those couple days. And feasibility, they like what they have, having all the games televised. And so I'm not sure logistically where that's going to go. And just to be honest with you, Wisconsin's is, and by nature, most sports are hard to change and most organizations are hard to change. You have to have a consensus, and I think if you're around any kind of coaches or wherever, you're never going to get a consensus on anything. So you bring up proposals, and I think we'll see a bunch of them in April. I haven't talked to Kate Peterson yet. She's on vacation this week, rightfully so, after a couple weekends, though, that she was pretty busy. But we'll meet in early April again and go through some of the proposals and discuss them and then go from there. But ultimately, anything that gets changed comes from the membership, and that's administrators. So whether a coach whether I think something should be this way or that way, it ultimately goes through the administrators of all the schools that are member schools.
It is quite a large section that you are involved in for Rapids and the other area Division I teams around here. Is that a problem or is that not a problem? I think it's kind of a problem that you have teams up in Superior. You got Oshkosh West over in the east. You got the Fox Valley. You got the Big Rivers teams. You got the Wisconsin Valley teams. That's almost that's a half a state tournament right in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and obviously Superior's, I won't say they're on an island, but they're a ways away, and then you have Hudson, who's a little bit further away too. So you go from Oshkosh to Superior, that's quite a trek either way. At one time we did see half sectionals, but I think the frustration was having too many good teams on one side, and then I think that evened out a little bit. But our section has always voted to seed the whole sectional. All 8. This year it was 18 teams. Some years it's 17. So the coaches vote on that, I think, yearly to decide whether we're going to seed the whole section or half sections. Because I think then if you went half sections, there wouldn't be quite the travel early, and then there would be a place to meet in the middle somewhere. But I think as a coach, you complain about some stuff, but then ultimately you're going, okay, how do I navigate this? Because it's not changing. I can complain, I can do whatever as much as I want, but I still have to go do this. They're not going to change it just because I think it should be changed or whatever. So I think from that aspect, coaches are like, in my opinion, they're like, okay, trying to figure stuff out. What's an obstacle? What's maybe a hurdle? And then trying to make it into something that you can navigate and actually be successful with.
And actually, it kind of worked out in that section because you talk about interesting. You had the number 1 seed lose to the 16. You saw the number 3 seed lose to the 14. The number 5 seed, I think, lost as well. You had a chance, and I wanted to get your point of view on that because you saw Oshkosh West right before they faced Eau Claire Memorial. Did you see that coming? Did you see that bracket get blown up so quickly? Did you see that? Because it was real entertaining.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Memorial play a lot. I've just seen snippets of them, and I start, as you get closer to the seeding, then you start watching a few more teams, but you're kind of, as a coach, again, you're just looking at what's straight in front of you. When I saw Oshkosh West, they have a 6'9" kid in the middle who just committed to Oshkosh this last couple days I saw on Twitter. And they went 6'9", 6'5", 6'5". Their smallest guy was 6'1", and he was pretty quick. So I think from the aspect of surprise, it didn't surprise me. It didn't shock me, I guess. that it could happen, and anybody can play anybody, with the travel and everything else. But Oshkosh West had the ability. They're a first-year coach that had not coached this group before, and I think, as you get better as the season goes on, they had some close games with some other teams too. But when you have size and you have some kids that play well, you never know. And I think it did not surprise me almost any of the stuff. It was, like I said, you got to be good and maybe a little bit lucky, and you got to be playing well at at the right times.
And Coach, jumping, I guess, from the overall state atmosphere, their state championship atmosphere, and going back into your own program, you've done this for a long time. You've done it at different schools. You've had success. I think one of the biggest things, whether it's been in my conversations with you or watching, being in a conversation, you're interacting with your players, is how big those player connections are. And you've been coaching for a long time, and you're still at the youth stuff. I see you at the youth tournaments, looking around and watching those players. How big a deal is that, especially nowadays? Because we see, I see some youth programs struggling to get kids out, and then I see other ones that are bulking up with 4 or 5 teams, and sometimes though you see those teams that are able to get a lot of participants at younger ages and find success and put the time in and know that the head coach of the program cares about them, really get a lot out of those groups as they move throughout the program. How big a deal is that to you, and how do you look at player connections as being of such high importance?
Well, I think it's a big deal. Player connections with me is probably, even though I don't seem like the most friendly guy in the world, and some of my players my players and former players would probably say sometimes I wasn't the most friendly person around. But I think the equation becomes a little bit different after they're done playing, and I see guys around, and we have conversations that you sometimes a coach and a player don't have, but then you become more friends and more closely related. But I think letting the parents know that it matters and giving opportunities. It's about opportunities for kids to experience things that are challenging, because that's what life is, and to be able to do that. I mean, I coach. I was an assistant coach on Mason Pray's Jim Pray's team when we lost to Milwaukee Marquette with Damon Key and Martinez, and then coaching Chris Gustafson in the state championship game, and then listening to guys talk about their experiences, and it may sound cliche, but a lot of times now, obviously Newman's going to talk about their state championship forever. And when I was a senior in high school, we lost to Whitefish Bay Dominican when they were on like a 70-game winning streak or whatever it was, but we lost by 3, or actually by, I don't even know what it was, 1 maybe. But anyway, it was, you go through those times and you learn through that, but it's the experiences, the bus rides, the pizza parties, I'm not around our guys all the time because they're with each other, whether it be, you look at those guys that they're on spring break right now, together. And those are the experiences that you remember. I was with I saw 2 of my teammates from the 78 team, down at state, and one of who was my best friend growing up, was with me for both games, and we had some, connections obviously with the Wallvogel family, because I played with Paul, who was the oldest boy, and so those are the things that you remember. The wins and losses, they say it's cliche, but sometimes they do fade a little bit. But I can remember, this instance or that instance, or what we did here, this bus ride, or staying in this hotel, or this game, or whatever. Those are the things that last. And like I said, it's something that's supposed to help you with something that happens, something that's a challenge in your life. How do you go about it? I'm a proponent that athletes, sometimes are better equipped because they deal with it more consistently than maybe somebody who is not involved in athletics.
And I guess as we wrap it up, you mentioned the fact that you had a chance to coach in Milwaukee for WISA, and then in Madison with the Red Raiders back in 2005. Does being at state make you want to taste that again even more, especially when you see people that get that gold ball this past weekend? Or how do you look at it, that fire to succeed as you've had so much success? I mean, when you go back there, does that bring back those feelings that when you were on the sideline for the state tournament?
Yeah, I was upstairs when they were waiting for the players to come up the elevator, towards the end there, after the game. And I flashed back to when we were down in the tunnels and the locker rooms we were in when I was at 05, or, when I was a player, we went to Milwaukee my sophomore year, and in those days they let you practice on the court, so we practiced on the Mecca court, and we were in the locker room that the Bucks are in. So like Brian Winters was sitting in a chair when we're walking in the locker room to change. Elmore Smith, we're there. They just finished practice, and we were coming in to use the court, and they're just getting their bags ready, and they're leaving. It's those are the things that stick with you, and the fire, that part comes with just being excited for kids. So we lost 6 seniors this year to graduation, but I'm looking at our kids now, and I give them a little bit of time, so we'll take off after spring break. We're on spring break next week, and then when we come back in the beginning of April, we'll start our individual meetings with kids and where they're at and where their goals are, and then, okay, this is your goal. Well, these are the things that maybe is the path to get to these goals, and you get wrapped up in the daily stuff more so than the big picture sometimes, because the daily stuff is what makes the big picture. But absolutely, Division I is a challenge, obviously, because there's some good teams that didn't get down there, that lost somewhere along the line or whatever. That maybe it was a team of a 10-year span, their best team maybe in 15 years, and they didn't get down there because they lost in a close game or whatever. So you have to be able to. So I was lucky enough to be able to experience it as a player twice and as a coach, 3 times at Newman and once at Lincoln. So I count myself blessed to even have that experience, because there's coaches, and he would not be listening, but you got a guy like Ted Boyd who was up at Lakeland for years and years and years, had great teams and never got to go to one state tournament. So. And there's great coaches, great teams, great players that never get there. So I think you're being pragmatic. I'm blessed and lucky to have had the opportunities I did, but now we'll go after it again next year and see how good we can be. And
Ted Boyd had some games against East. I know that. Remember some of those games? That's incredible. Incredible
atmosphere in those guys. Yep.
Jeff, any final questions here for the coach?
No. Just Chad kind of hit it on the head. I was going to ask you how that same feeling comes about, just being in that atmosphere, and I assume, like you said, it's just always the same, because you're excited for the kids no matter what ties you have to them, and I think player connection. So I guess thanks for always being an advocate for high school basketball and for finding those connections with your players and your teams, and just wish you the best on continued success as the new seasons come up here, and look forward to talking again when more basketball rolls around here in the winter.
Yeah, well, I'm the lucky one to be able to do what I do is pretty special, and I'm blessed and humbled by it.
Dan Witter, head coach of the Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln Red Raiders. Again, Coach, thank you for spending some time with us.
Absolutely, anytime, you guys.
We got to take a break, and we're going to come back, and Jeff and I will have some highlights of this season, some performers and performances that we'll remember here as we wrap up this season of the Big High School Sports Show. That's coming up here on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230.
Thank you always.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. One more segment to go here for our final show of the season. Jeff Gress and Chad Holmes. Again, thanks to all of our guests tonight and throughout the season. 4 good ones here tonight, but we've had terrific guests throughout the course of the season. Man, I mean, when you think about the numbers, We normally would have a couple of guests, but we've been adding 3 and then 4 the last few times, so somewhere in the 70-plus range during the course of the entirety of the season, going back to mid-August. But again, we really do appreciate everybody that's been able to spend a little time with us.
Well, and we talk off air all the time how the guests, the players and coaches and other supporting casts of high school basketball really make this valuable and worthwhile of what we get to talk about, what we get to experience, because you get to share in their lives on the basketball court.
Let's talk about some of the highlights here of the winter sports season on the basketball court for the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Let's start with the boys, because it was obviously a fantastic year for Marshfield. And one of the things about playoffs is sometimes they'll take away from, I think, a sense where people always remember the last thing that happened. But I thought the consistency that Marshfield had this season, they started off playing some tough non-conference games in their schedule, and they were just by far the best team in the conference this season.
And not early favorites. I mean, early favorites with Hall and DC Everest and Spash is always hanging around. Those were kind of some of the top heavy hitters they picked. And for Marshfield to keep that consistency with Hinson and Lemoyne and a couple of other supporting casts, a big deal. I think sometimes that gets lost, like you said, because teams are getting knocked out in the regional semifinals after they do have a good season and do win the conference title. It can be forgotten about for the teams that are still standing at the end of the season.
Marcus Hall has to be one of those as well, that he got a statewide award for, top wing player as a senior. Obviously, he's got some big plans for the future, but the way that he was able to perform and help a new head coach be very successful in Oliver Drake as well for DCE.
Right. Always a formidable opponent, hanging at 9-3 in the conference, notched up 18 wins, but just a stellar career with all the individual accolades as well as how dangerous he helped make his team. And again, how many times have we heard that one of his best attributes was how well he could see the floor and pass the ball? Absolutely.
Any other thoughts on Valley, boys side?
That consistency of watching that conference race breakdown. We always wait so long to get into the conference race, and then all of a sudden it just escalates in January and February. How many conference games are always happening all over the place? But to tip your cap to Marshfield for staying consistent at the top of that conference.
On the girls' side, boy, I mean, talk about a big surprise. I think when we started this off, that the idea that it would be Stevens Point earning a sweep over Marshfield, a sweep over Wausau West to win the Valley Conference. Very impressive for Stevens Point.
Well, to go 4-0 against the next two teams in the conference was a big deal. And again, a team we thought might be standing, but we're tougher draw in the playoffs. Ran into a buzzsaw playing at Neenah in that round and in the second round of the playoffs. And for them to have an 11-1 mark and win that conference was not a team that early on was expected to do that. So to Coach Terpstra and his squad, an excellent job to finish that off.
Absolutely. Let's turn to the Great Northern Conference. On the boys' side, it was probably as enjoyable to follow this season as any, because you had 3 outstanding teams. You had Medford, you had Northern Pines, you had Mosinee really going at it in that league. Medford to be able to do what they did. I think it's similar to what Stevens Point did on the girls' side in the Valley, to be able to sweep both Northern Pines and Mosinee and go that entire conference season without a loss. Really a terrific season for Medford.
Well, to be 12-0 and undefeated in conference for when you're in your own conference, it's a battle. It's the teams you face are always the best teams you feel you're going to see, and they had just a scoring monster in Baumgartner, Robbie, and Kleiss, where those guys were putting up 15 plus points any given night, and it was always that race we talked about. Who's going to beat who, and Medford stayed consistent and stayed true, and ultimately got that number 1 spot in the conference.
Mosinee, congratulations to Keegan Jersley getting honorable mention all state from the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association. He's a player that's coming back for one more year, so that's obviously good for Mosinee. And Davin Stoffel, who's had such a great football season, backed it up with a great basketball season.
Right, and for Mosinee, I think the biggest thing for them was to finally they have these stellar conference seasons and do really well and rack up all these wins, but the knock on them had been that they'd struggle in the playoffs year in and year out, and this year they didn't. They made it into that. They won the regional final and ended up into the sectionals and did a solid job and got the production they needed to finish with a solid 8-4 mark in that conference.
Real quickly on the girls' side, it was all Lakeland.
Yeah, very much so. The Wilmette sisters, they got one more coming back, so they earned their state berth this year, and deservingly so, a 12-0 mark in that conference.
Marywood South, great boys basketball campaign. You talk about Battle of the Titans. You had Marathon, Newman, and Auburndale. Marathon was able to win a hard-fought conference championship. But then Auburndale again loses twice in the regular season, beats the Raiders in the sectionals, and Newman, of course, may not have got the conference championship, but gets the gold ball.
Yeah, just a war again. Each with 23 victories plus. I know Newman had 27, but Auburndale Marathon had 23, 24 wins, and it's just always a war with individual accolades coming for Warren Price, Seidel Kroc, Will Fart for Auburndale, all those guys getting some all-state honors. Again, just an absolute lot of fun to watch.
And it'll be fun to watch Grant Warren next year as a senior. He has such a great junior year, boy. If he takes another step, he could be just incredibly scary for teams to face.
Yeah, I think nice outside shot, plays well on the inside, does a lot of good things on both ends. And I think, just from hearing him talk, from hearing his parents talk, his next thing is going to be able to put a little more size and strength on there.
We got about 2 minutes to go, and I know we can't go through all the conferences and everything else, but to wrap it up, anything else you want to say before we do put the finishing touches on this season?
No, I guess just looking forward to maybe some things that'll happen. Will there be extra steps to get some more Division I teams down at the state game? The shot clock is always in effect, and I'm becoming more of a fan of it as you are with watching, a lot of fouling having to go on at the end of these games and delaying these games, and you still want that excitement and that speed, and I think that shot clock would add that for improvements. But I just think that the state is in a good spot. Watching what I saw down at the state championship with these stellar teams, these excellent programs, these athletes putting it all on the line through their time, effort, blood, sweat, everything that they've laid out there. And I just think that we've got a great product here. So hopefully people continue to join that and carry that into the spring sports season. Because just because we transfer to different sports, it's still the same excitement and it's still the same abilities and work ethics that you're going to see out of some great student athletes.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think that I would like to see the WIAA be a little bit more proactive in terms of trying to add maybe elements that could help state tournament, help the game generally, whatever sport you may be talking about. So, again, it's very difficult, as we've heard our coaches talk about, to get those changes because you don't want to do it on a knee-jerk reaction. But at the same time, there are some things I think that would be great to be able to implement to make it just even a little bit better. Also, I want to say thank you to Jeff Gress. I want to say thank you to Paul Novinsky, who joined me throughout the course of the season, 32 shows since mid-August. Thanks again to all the coaches who have been so generous with their time, the student athletes especially as well, just to be able to sit down and talk to them each and every week and learn a little bit more about them and what they're able to do as part of a well-rounded student-athlete experience. So that's, I guess, it. 10 seconds. Any final thoughts?
And a big thank you to Chaz Holm for being an advocate, a supporter, and just an overall voice for our local high school athletics. Hopefully everybody appreciates all he does all the time.